so encouraging to be here with, like I said, many friends in the room who I planted purposefully so they will tell me I did an excellent job because I was stressing about this presentation. I was sitting in the last Creative Mornings event last month when Jerry made the announcement of, oh, the next month's word will be Native. And I thought, I really want to do that. I really want to talk about being Native to Fort Worth. This is so important to me. How exciting. But Jerry's perfect, and he had everything lined up, I assumed. I did nothing with this enthusiasm. I just sat on it, and I thought, okay, well, I can't wait for next month. So I was about a month late in reaching out to Jerry to grab coffee to just connect. This was maybe last week. And I said, hey, what's happening? Do you want to have coffee? And he said, do you want to speak next week? Basically. And I was so thrilled and excited. And then I immediately opened PowerPoint for the first time in a decade and was like, oh no, I don't know about this. And also the word Native, it's such a powerful, big, important word in the conversation happening in our country today. And I thought, what in the world makes me qualified to talk to you about the word Native? Other than being native to Fort Worth, being a native Texan, both of which are really, really important to me. Before we do start, I thought it was very important because for me, my first reaction to the word Native was thinking about the Native Americans who have lived here in time perpetuity. So this is a land acknowledgement that TCU has put out on their website. As a TCU alum, I thought I could adapt this, and I thought it was important to recognize the benefits, responsibilities, and relationships of being in this place that we share with all living things. That was really important to recognize this morning. It's such a beautiful day, and I hope that this catapults us all into a wonderful weekend and time spent with loved ones. We respectfully acknowledge all Native American peoples who lived on this land since time immemorial. What I really liked about this word and how it was developed for Creative Mornings was that it came from the Honolulu chapter. And for many of you who don't know, Creative Mornings, there are over 230 chapters all around the world. So 200 or plus chapters are visiting about the word Native today. And I think that connection is really exciting. Given everything that Hawaii experienced in the past year, I thought it was really important that our friends in Honolulu had this recognition because your place in the world, your pride for place, and being native from somewhere is really what makes up who you are. Where you're from shapes who you are. I really believe that. Being from Fort Worth, my parents are here. I'm going to give them a big shout out. Johnny and Vicky Cisneros. I am completely shaped by this city. It's a relational city, it's a friendly city. I think that many of us have heard the phrase, Fort Worth is a big city with a small town feel. And I hope that that's true for people moving here, that they have found the welcoming spirit and the collaborative nature that I've seen in my almost 38 years of being here. It's really wonderful to have the support of people like you in this room, many institutions, family members, friends who have stood by me as I've navigated my own way into my hometown now as an adult. There's something to be said about choosing your hometown as the place that you're going to keep building your roots as an adult for your own family. And I always thought as a younger person that I would leave Fort Worth. I thought, I'm going to go work at MoMA in New York City. And then I visited New York City and I was like, I could never live here. I could visit, but Fort Worth is home for so many reasons. And I love it here. I'm happy to talk to you today. It was hilarious. I was talking to my husband last night about this presentation, and he said, all I gathered was that you are happy to be a Fort Worth native and that we should subscribe to the Fort Worth Report. And I said, well, there was a lot that I put into this, but those are the two key takeaways. So this building that you're sitting in was built in 1915. It's a historic building that my parents purchased and renovated for their restaurant, which has been Los Vaqueros in the Stockyard since 1984. This space we moved into when I was a teenager, and I have really fond memories of, running up and down the floor with a paint roller, or coming here after school with my two younger sisters and watching my grandmother and her friends paint the bar. So this feels like you are all coming home. So welcome, and thank you, Dad, for making our breakfast burritos this morning. Really nice. But being in the restaurant industry, growing up as a restaurant kid, is really, really unique in the sense that, when the world is playing, you're working. My parents work on the weekends, and so our schedules are different, vastly different. But I think what that allowed us was a really amazing closeness with our family. Our family here, that's another reason I've never left my hometown, is because my family's here. We're exceptionally close, all of us being part of the restaurant industry growing up. Somehow I'm the only daughter that worked here, and I still don't understand how that happened. My two younger sisters never worked in the restaurant. That's right, firstborn, oldest. But I really enjoyed it. I worked here with my parents, my grandmother, in a variety of different ways. It's here that I really got a heart for service, and my love for stories was born in the restaurant. People meeting for the first time at a table, exchanging a meal and conversations. That is really deeply rooted in me, just in the way that being from Fort Worth is. I went to TCU, and I studied journalism there. News editorial journalism and strategic communications. I naturally I found myself in the newsroom just organically, and I think it really was my love for storytelling and writing that propelled me to seek out a degree in journalism. It was there that I was taught by the journalism greats. Phil Record, he taught my media ethics class, and he wrote the ethics guide that the Society of Professional Journalists use today. So I was really fortunate to be part of that program. And when I was at TCU, I worked for the Daily Skiff. I was the opinion editor, and we put out a daily paper. I worked for the Star-Telegram. I did the morning news shift at NBC5. That was a 3 a.m. arrival time to work, which was challenging. But I also was offered opportunities to contribute to the Fort Worth Business Press, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. I interned at Fort Worth Magazine. So I had a really rich media background, which really helped me when at graduation, I was hired at the Kimball Art Museum and was paired with the head of marketing, who had a really great love and background in art history. She was an academic, and so together, she and I could take very scholarly text about art and exhibitions and make it relatable to someone like me, who was just a general museum goer, someone who loved museums in Fort Worth. So from there, I went to work at Fort Worth Texas Magazine, another city institution. I was there for a short time and really realized then that the news is where my heart is, the news is where my passion is. I went and worked for Lena Pope. For those of you who don't know Lena Pope, it's a social service agency in Fort Worth. It's been here almost 100 years, where they serve children and families in the community. So it was there that I got my development experience working with a phenomenal leader. And I told Lena Pope I would never leave them, and I haven't. I'm on their board now. I'm still a volunteer, and now on their executive committee. But the Modern Art Museum of Fort Worth recruited me almost 9 years ago to run the membership, special events, and development department. And I absolutely love the Modern. I really do. I have colleagues and friends here from the museum. It's an amazing institution. But I always had this feeling of, journalism is so important to me. Telling the stories of our city, of my native Fort Worth, is really important. So that's what led me to the Fort Worth Report. I started there in December 11th. How many of you are familiar with the Fort Worth Report? Yes, that's so great. I'm so glad. For those of you who don't know who we are, we were founded in April of 2021 as a free, fair, and local digital news source for Tarrant County. And I have to introduce Rocio Hernandez. She is at this front table. Rocio is gonna fact check everything I say. But she is our fantastic membership manager, and I've been so grateful to work with her. She's doing a fantastic job building reader loyalty and engagement with our work. So what I came to understand about the Fort Worth Report, like many of us, the pandemic shifted everything. Life is not the same. But in 2020, as people had more time on their hands at home, thinking, talking, there were conversations around what's happening with local media. There were city leaders, including Wes Turner, former publisher of the Star-Telegram, who's now a co-chair of our board. They formed what we call the Coalition of the Concerned. They were all very concerned that Fort Worth was losing local news coverage. And local news coverage is declining across the country, no doubt about it. But they said, also caring so deeply for the city, they thought, how can we combat this? We have a beautiful slide deck at the Fort Worth Report that I could have showed you, but it's not a surprise. Since 2008, since I graduated from college, newspaper circulation has declined in print tremendously. So that model has really broken. As things move digital to a digital space, the way that newspapers used to gain revenue through advertising, it's just not the same. And so, this is a nationwide problem. It's something that you all recognize too. And in the current landscape that we're in, there's a lot of rampant distrust in the media. So fact-based local journalism is really a way that we can bring communities together. Just to give you an example, the Star-Telegram at its height employed 400 reporters. That's when Tarrant County was not the 12th largest city in the country. 400. They have less than 40 in their newsroom today. KERA, our public broadcast station based in Dallas, they have 2 reporters, only 2 people covering Tarrant County. That's not enough. 2/3 of the media outlets that cover North Texas, they sometimes overlook Fort Worth entirely. And to that, I just say Dallas Stadium. That is not, we are not Dallas. We are absolutely not Dallas. That's where my native Fort Worth comes out the most. And then Arlington, is there anyone here that lives in Arlington? Okay, so Arlington is the largest city in the United States without a local paper. And we just launched to combat that. It's a city of 400,000 residents. We launched the Arlington Report last week. So that's a weekly newsletter for Arlington residents focused exclusively on your city. So it's all really exciting. We are building a new kind of news organization. We are responsive to the community. I love that we highlight solutions. We're not just putting out content. As someone who was a trained journalist, in this age of social media, anyone can be a reporter, right? Anyone can put information out on the internet, but not everyone is a journalist. There is so much training that goes into being a journalist. I remember back when you would fail your grade entirely if you misspelled someone's name. The level that our reporters are at is tremendous. If you ever come to our newsroom and see our staff, one of the things that made me so excited to work at the Fort Worth Report was seeing our community reflected in our team. Our reporters are required to live in Tarrant County, so they're not working remotely from any other state. They are bought in to being in Fort Worth and Tarrant County. And before we launched in April, we conducted market research of Tarrant County and Fort Worth to really understand what do readers and residents want to know about? What are those issues that matter most? We did listening tours and we continue to do listening tours. If we have time, and if my presentation just completely trails off, we will have time to listen and learn from each other. But listening tours brought us to all corners of the community to really hear from people, what are you missing in your news? What do you want to learn more about? What's happening in your daughter's school? What's happening at City Hall? All of our live journalism events, they point out ways that issues can be solved. It's not just putting out articles with no resolution. That's one of the most exciting things for me. One thing that, that's my dad, it's okay. One thing for me that underscored or just really reaffirmed how excited I was to be a part of this initiative in my hometown, my city, my native Fort Worth, was attending one of our Candid Conversations series in December. You know, for me to be sitting in a ballroom at Texas Wesleyan University at 7:30 a.m. on a Wednesday in December and seeing the room filled with 400 people from all parts of our community who were listening and wanting to know more about a topic as polarizing as gentrification, I thought, this is where I'm meant to be. This is such an exciting time to broaden impact beyond art museums to touch on so many parts of our community and of Fort Worth that matter to me. Our reporting also builds greater understanding. I mean, I had breakfast with someone yesterday who said, well, I just spent 45 minutes going through the school report trying to figure out what's happening, and he said it was the most satisfying rabbit hole he's been in all week. So this is a new business model for where local news is going. I thought it was really interesting to learn too that this is not just happening in our region, it's nationwide. So there are now hundreds of nonprofit newsrooms across the country, and many are supported, us included, by the American Journalism Project, which is an initiative to re-engage public trust in the media, really starting from a grassroots effort in newsrooms that are community supported, community owned, essentially. We're funded by philanthropy, in large part, local businesses and readers who contribute $1 or more. That is how we will be sustainable. We launched also at the end of last year the Community Journalism Fund. And so that is in part allowing the business team, people like Rocio and myself, to work on diversifying the revenue streams that are coming into the newsroom to allow us to move from a digital startup to a community institution that will live on for many, many years to come, that will live on to better inform my daughter, who's 4, who already thinks she knows everything about the city. She gave me this sticker, by the way. It's Beauty and the Beast. She was like, you can do it, Mommy. Good luck. Good luck today. But what's really amazing is that we have 46,000 people interested in reading the news, and this number grows every single day. In our newsroom every morning, we have a count of where are our numbers? What are the top 3 most Googled things in Fort Worth? Most of the time, I feel like it's allergies. But what are those things that people care about? What are people searching for? How can we better connect our reporting to the community needs? For those of you that don't know, we put out, and Jerry, please tell me if I'm okay on time.
You're good.
Okay. We put out a daily newsletter that goes out Monday through Friday, a weekend newsletter. We have the government report, the school report, the green report, which focuses on environmental concerns and sustainability, and the Arlington report launched last week, as I mentioned. It already has 800 subscribers, and we're getting wonderful comments coming in of people saying, we've needed this in Arlington. And then as you know, I've talked briefly about my time at the Kimball Art Museum, my time at the Modern. The arts are so important to me personally. I think they're absolutely vital to the fabric of our city, and we are so, so fortunate to be in Fort Worth and Tarrant County, where we have these magnificent institutions. And so that leads me to a little tease. This is not public yet, but we are expanding arts and culture coverage in a really great way this year. So I am so excited for that. So stay tuned. And I couldn't get away without talking about art and showing you some art. So this is the artist, Jack Soren, who designed the earlier slide that was marketing this month's idea and theme of Native. Jack is a Native Hawaiian artist. I love his work. I think it's really beautiful. And I love that Creative Mornings offers artists that way to connect with us by creating something that is meaningful to our theme. This is another one of Jack's pieces that I personally loved. And then thinking back to the word Native and thinking about a Native American woman, a Native American artist that I absolutely love. She's one of my favorite artists. Her name is Jean Quick-to-See Smith. I loved this quote from her. She says, "Art should reveal the unknown for those who lack the experience of seeing it." And in many ways, I think that that's what our newsroom does. You know, we reveal so much of what people don't know about our city. And even for me, as someone who is native to Fort Worth, the reporters are answering questions that I didn't even know I had about my own city. Like, what did happen to the public pools in Fort Worth? I don't know. But Jean, I think it's important to mention, so she had an exhibition at the Modern recently where I had the opportunity to meet her. But in 2023, she was still the first Native American woman to have a New York retrospective at the Whitney in 2023. She's in her 80s, and her show opened at the Whitney, moved to the Modern, and then it will close in Seattle, where her tribe is from. So this is Jean with my daughter, Amelia. Amelia is a huge fan of Jean's too. Very precocious 4-year-old. So she made a painting for Jean and gave it to her at the museum. And Jean was so gracious and said, you know, I can't believe I have this 4-year-old fan. It was the youngest person that accessed her work. But I think one thing that we both really enjoyed about walking through the exhibition is like the visibility, like being seen, the feeling of belonging. Those were all themes that came up, and even themes I heard on a call this week that relate to this idea of pride in the place that you're from. People were talking about, how do I fit in here? Like, how do I belong? What does it mean to connect with people in the city? And I really do believe that's where the Fort Worth Report comes in. That's where the Arlington Report comes in so many ways. Like, we can be that connector to share the stories that matter to you. And we have a tab on our website as well that says Help Us Report, where we encourage people to tell us what's important about your native city. You know, send us reports on, you know, what's happening in your neighborhood. Share your story about where I live. Send us a recipe, anything like that. You can help us make the newsroom a richer experience for everyone. This is just it sounds like many of you are familiar with the Fort Worth Report, but this is, you can scan this to subscribe to any of our newsletters. And it's free, if I didn't mention that. It is integral to our mission that news be free to access to anyone. And so I will just close with this. You know, I was making a joke that, you know, Jerry and this wasn't an expected conversation necessarily. I hadn't planned on this for weeks, and if I had, I would have been running through my slide deck and doing all kinds of things. But this group, Creative Mornings, is really important to me. I encourage you to lean into any moments of alignment. If anything sparked with you, take it and run with it. I will share that in December, the topic was pain, and we were at Cancer Care Services. Melanie Wilson did an amazing job. I never knew then that her talk would have prepared me to lose my grandmother to cancer in January. You know, I just never would have thought. And if I'd had more time like I wanted to, I was going to put, you know, family photos in here, really demonstrate like what my city looked like. But I realized this group, we don't necessarily need that. We need just each other in this room. And I was desperate to find a photo of myself as a child to put in here, but I would just say, look behind the cash register. You know, if you want to see a photo of me as a child with braces and like 4 teeth, that is behind the cash register for you. But I would say, please take a moment on your way out to look at the portrait of the beautiful couple that is at the entrance of this restaurant. It's my grandparents, my grandmother and grandfather, they are both since passed, but they are a really important part of this city, my family, and again, I'm so glad that you're all here. This feels like your home, and I encourage you to connect with me at any time. I'm happy to answer your questions about the Fort Worth Report, my career, the art museums, anything. So thank you.